Um, was there ever a moment when you were sort of discouraged with the project and didn't want to continue? Because people can look at it now and be like, oh, this is fun and cool, and it's like on Sony systems and stuff, but was there ever a moment when you're like, you almost feel like you couldn't go on?
I don't know, because we've kind of like always had a lot of positive feedback right from the get-go. Like, we made the game, the first version of the game, in about 20 hours. We liked it. We didn't really get it out into anybody's hands.
Well, we
actually,
did play the crap out of it at that party.
Yeah, but I was way too drunk to remember that.
It got a lot of good feedback, but that was definitely the hardest version we ever made.
Yeah, and then we started tinkering with it.
The pelicans would fire the eggs as though they were snipers. It was impossible to avoid the eggs.
Just like real life.
Yeah, exactly.
You had to be committed to dodging those eggs.
I wouldn't say that there was a point where we felt discouraged, but it's difficult because you don't know. Like, the Xbox Live Indies and original PC version didn't sell gangbusters.
I found the best hat.
Oh, which one do you have?
Yes.
I know which one.
Died with it.
He doesn't have the best hat. He just has one of the good ones.
You do have one of the good ones.
Oh, I died with it.
I won't lie and say there wasn't like a little. We were a little sad that it didn't sell better because we feel like it was a quality product, and it's hard because you release on Xbox Live Indies and the big outlets tend to turn their nose up at that, and people don't really want to dive in on dollar games in general. We found that pricing it at $1 originally was one of the biggest mistakes we could have ever made because cheap prices often denote poor quality. So we definitely learned some lessons from that.
We also got in on the Xbox Live Indie games like right as it was like just dead, dying out. So there was a small dedicated community and very little room for discovery because not a lot of people use the service anymore. So I feel like if we had gotten to the scene a few years earlier, it might have been a bigger deal than it ended up being.
Ah, okay.
It might have helped, but we can't take it back in time, unfortunately.
Can that be can you make that into like a power up? Revive it like Weird Science?
I don't know, but one of the things we did want to do was have a level play out backwards, but the logistics of that are just ridiculous.
Yeah, that was a tough one to. We talked about that for a couple of seconds, and we're like, yeah, that's not going to work.
So, through development, of course, you're still working on the game. You're making a Wii U port, and the game still needs some help, such as the redneck hat. But through all of development thus far, what has been the most interesting challenge that you've encountered? Was it technical? Was it design-wise?
It's interesting to balance a game like this when you've done as much as you can to take the powers out of your own hands. So balancing levels in the sense that we want these enemies to show up here and then these enemies to show up here. The player should have this like sort of like limit to their power as they go through. Because there's so many random factors in it, we can't control very much. So I feel like balancing all the weapons, how they interact with all the upgrades, all of those interactions have proved kind of tricky because the more we add to the game, the more work it becomes exponentially to balance it out. Like, for example, any sort of fighting game. I think Smash Bros. Creator Sakurai talked about this once, where adding new characters, like you've got 40 characters in the game, adding another character is like 41 times as much work as adding the first character kind of deal, because you have to balance everything with all the existing content, and stuff can interact in unpredictable ways, and that definitely gave us a lot of trouble.
I would also say one of the biggest things I think we I don't want to say struggled with, but worked on very much was player communication and how do we get it across to the player what you're supposed to do and how things work. Like the lobby system, for example, we spent a little bit of time trying to get that right. I think we came up with several different prototype ideas and sketches before we landed on what we got. And I think we found a good compromise for the multiplayer lobby.
What was the most surprising reaction to Shutshimi that you've seen from a player? Was it at a conference? Did you just see a Let's Play where someone just exploded?
We've seen a handful of those. It's fun when people stream their first playthroughs, especially if they've got like a webcam going, because the game does a lot of things in an unexpected way. Like, it's a shoot 'em up for people who don't play shoot 'em ups, basically, and it tends to do things its own way. It has a lot of surprises in it, so we get a lot of interesting reactions. For some reason, I feel like when we are watching people play, like at a show or something, the reactions tend to be a little more subdued.
Unless they're children.
Oh yeah, well yeah, the children, they don't worry about that sort of thing.
I would pay good money to see how the children reacted to the butts power up.
They lose it. They think it's the funniest thing in the world.
And their parents are just sitting there just like, I wasn't laughing.
I was having a serious conversation with a mother while her children were playing the game at one point, and we were talking about just game development in the area and what it's like to get into the, doing it and blah, 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 I don't know. And then the butts power-up happened, and she was like, oh, what's that on the screen right now? And I just, in the middle of my sentence, was like, oh, that's just butts, and then started talking again as though I had said nothing out of the ordinary. And then a couple of seconds later, I just started laughing because I realized how absurd that was. She was not amused. She did not find it nearly as funny as I did.
And now, butts. So have you had actually any problems with people like, God, you can't put butts in there?
Just Steam.
Oh yeah.
One of the things we really wanted to do was have the butt as like the rare icon that you get for like crafting a badge, but it was rejected.
But it was rejected?
Yeah, but it was rejected, and we did have a decent compromise.
They couldn't get behind that.
Gosh dang it, Anthony! And actually, speaking of getting behind, Choice Provisions, which was formerly Gaijin Games, the developers of Commando Video, got behind you guys. How did that happen?
We let our guards down. They just slipped in and...
So I used to write for websites pretty regularly many moons ago, and over the years I developed a relationship with Alex Noisy, the CEO of the company, just from interviewing him after seeing him at shows and getting to know him. Just, I'd show up at PAX and he'd be there and we'd shoot the shit. Sorry about that. I don't know if I'm supposed to swear. My apologies.
He'd shoot the butts.
We'd shoot the butts, and we'd talk about whatever, and I'd interview him about his game, and it was cool. And like I said before, a little bit earlier in the interview, we were talking about this. I showed it to him. He said that they were thinking about starting publishing games, so they were interested in looking at this further. And then once we finally got a build to them, when they were getting a little more serious about publishing, they loved it, and we just kind of hit the ground running with them.
Have you found that publishing gave you more time to sort of focus on development, definitely?
I would say no, because like we had it lined up and it ended up being more work for us because the scope for the game increased. But as for like spending more time on it, we all were working like full-time jobs when this game was being created. So the publishing deal didn't exactly free up any time because we still had to go to work and all that stuff. What it did was it made it a lot easier because they took some of the hassle out of like some of the stuff we had to do towards the end for getting things certified and like getting
consoles,
the equipment, yeah, all that stuff. They took care of all that stuff, so we had to spend less time on like the bureaucratic side of things, and then all we have to really do is make the game.
So it was helpful in that regard.
Yeah.
I think their connections to the large manufacturers and distributors like PlayStation and like Steam, those were invaluable to us because like when something if there was a problem with certification and it was going to slow us down, we were able to kind of smooth it over with a representative that they were friendly with, as opposed to if we were doing it by ourselves, we would have maybe been pushed to the back of the pack.
Absolutely. So yeah, did you ever get any unsavory deals before then? Like, hey, we'll publish your game.
Oh yeah, we got offers like that from some publishers that we had never heard of.
Some were more savory than others.
They wanted your firstborn child, I assume.
This is our firstborn child, so yeah.
I think we only spoke in depth with one of them beforehand, and I think it was like right before we were talking to Choice about it, and they were actually very nice about it, and the terms they offered were fair. I think we weren't sure what we were doing with the game yet at that point, and it was originally just supposed to be a small update. We weren't even going to do a full like rehaul, and then it kind of
seriously swole
got
edition
away from us. Yeah, it was. I think it was originally just going to be like a 1.1 release, and we just kept adding stuff, and then we got the publishing deal, so we never stopped.
Ah, gosh. I'm so used to Metal Gear Solid news that I'm kind of disappointed I can't fast forward time with the cigar.
Is that a thing in Metal Gear Solid 5? Because all I remember the cigar doing was like lowering your stress levels.
Well, yeah, actually, apparently when you smoke, just like in real life, it fast forwards time.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of
you
it's like
can
playing
fast
video
forward
games,
time.
but more smoky and manly.
You can fast forward time in Shutshimi if you get the right item.
Yeah, the enhanced time dilation.
It's a dangerous one.
Did you have any technical problems, like when you have like a bunch of stuff like combining? Because I remember in the previous version there was a lot more combinations that would make things absurdly powerful.
Oh, you mean for like in terms of balancing it, or
Yeah.
just technical grief? For balancing, generally not an issue. There's certain we try to get as many like trade-offs as possible, so it's more of a playstyle choice. Like a lot of people do not like the shotgun, but it is the most powerful weapon. It's just also the riskiest. Some power-ups are just like strictly good. For example, like rapid fire or damage increase. Those are strictly beneficial. Some of them, which seem like good things, like the brand new home, also kind of have a trade-off, because you can't have a brand new home and options at the same time.
School of Fish or brand new home.
If you want to have higher damage, then you would actually have to avoid getting the fishbowl in the hopes that you will find the shovel, which gives you all the little fishlets that circle you to do more damage.
So yeah, everything is trade-offs. And why am I swimming in an underground... Is this like an underground like dystopia / futurescape?
I'll just wait a few seconds until it shows up. Oh, right now you're above ground. There must be one
It's
round
the
ahead.
city.
Yeah, he's in a city, but he's not necessarily underground. There'd be caves if he was underground.
Well, I was thinking more so like this is underwater, right?
Well, it's,
sometimes.
The whole idea is that the fishie's retelling the story, but he can't get the details quite right. So it's like, you know, you talk to people sometimes and they tell you a story and you're like, I don't know if that's true. That's kind of what we're doing here with Shutshimi. He's telling you the story, but you're supposed to be sitting there going, wait a second now.
Yes! The boss has been defeated. I've crushed it beneath my biceps.
You got him. Is this the first time you beat this boss?
Yes.
Oh, then you're in for a treat.
Victory. Wait, what? Victory. Oh gosh. That got dark.
So one of the things we added since the original version was the bosses come back with a vengeance. And the game extends out to about double the length.
Oh gosh. The Dead Sea. Oh, I get it. I get it.